Excellencies, guests of honor, dear students, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and a warm welcome to all of you. I would also like to welcome those who follow us on our live stream transmission. It is really a great privilege and a great pleasure for me to welcome you all here as the new director of the Diplomatische Akademie Wien, the Vienna School of International Studies, the École des Sociétés Internationales de Vienne, also on behalf of my deputy, Martina Schubert. It is a particular honor to welcome the Federal Minister for European and International Affairs, Beate Meinl-Reisinger. Beate, thank you for being here. It truly means a lot for us, and we of course look forward to your keynote speech. I would also like to greet our partners, all our partners, in particular the Austrian Federal Ministry for European and International Affairs, but also the members of our Board of Trustees and the Association for the Advancement of Teaching at the DA, to whom we also owe a lot of our success. A warm welcome to the representatives of embassies and international organizations in Vienna. I see many representatives of embassies from countries where our students come from. We are delighted to see three former directors of the Diplomatic Academy among us, Emil Brix, Hans Winkler and Paul Leifer, who, like Herbert Kort, is a long-time sponsor of the Academy, and we are very grateful for that. I would also like to thank all our sponsors, all those public and private institutions and individuals, several of them DA graduates themselves, who allow also and all talented students to pursue their studies here, irrespective of their financial background. And of course, our academic partners, the University of Vienna, the Technical University of Vienna, and the University of Innsbruck, as well as our international partners, the international organizations, but also the city of Vienna. Of course, I would like to acknowledge those who will teach and guide our students through the academic year, our faculty. And a special greeting goes to our dedicated language departments. But at the center of today's inauguration ceremony are you, the students of the DA. Those who start their time at the Academy. We are happy to welcome about 130 new students on our campus, and the old hands who begin their second year of studies, all together 211 students from 59 nationalities, slightly more female than male this year. 2/3 of our students have not only passed the challenges of the admission process and the orientation week. Last Sunday, they have also mastered the most difficult entrance exam, which is our traditional wine walk from the city of Baden to Gumboldskirchen, followed by a visit to a Heurigen. Dear students, I know how difficult it was for some of you. You had a sometimes long and cumbersome journey fraught with visa requirements and administrative hurdles. But you have made it. I congratulate you on your perseverance and your efforts. Let me officially welcome you to the Diplomatic Academy. I would like to briefly tell you why our school is unique. You know it already, but at least as you should know, we offer 3 master programs: the Master of Advanced International Studies, the Master in Environmental Technology and International Affairs, and the Master in Digital International Affairs. And in addition, we offer a 1-year diploma program. I am pleased to report that this year we have 5 PhD students. Does this make us unique? Well, there are other postgraduate institutions who offer similar programs. So what makes us really special? Well, we have an unsurpassed teacher-student ratio. With a resident and non-resident faculty of more than 110 professors, we enjoy a teacher-student ratio of 1 to 2. One teacher for 2 students. This can hardly be met by others. There are more elements of uniqueness. Our school is the best place to find friends for life. Already at the end of the first year with us, you will, dear students, know all your fellow students and build a global network which will serve you very well later on. For the first time, we have students from Kosovo and Nepal in our academic programs. Also, the academic background is quite diverse. Political science is again leading, but there are also a number of students which come from the economic field or from a law background, languages, communication science, environmental sciences, and a few historians. But also disciplines like medicine, psychology, engineering, tourism, geology, anthropology, mathematics, agriculture, and even aquaculture, archaeology, film studies, musicology, and some more. What an incredible group. This diversity, that you live here with people of many different regions, with different characters and backgrounds, and that you respect each other, is one of the added values that are very important to us. It is a real opportunity to learn from each other. You live here at the heart of Europe, in Vienna, a city that has repeatedly been named the most livable city in the world, with a rich cultural heritage and a vibrant contemporary landscape of arts, culture, and culinary delights. And you live at the center of Europe, only a few hours away from half a dozen of European capitals. Vienna is also the seat of more than 50 international organizations and the headquarters of the United Nations. One can rightfully say that it is truly a capital of diplomacy. But there's so much more that we can offer. Our study trips, kindly supported by the Austrian embassies abroad, the large network of our alumni, our career services, our intensive language classes, and our student societies. I think this is now the moment to do some advertising for the famous ball on our premises on the 11th of April. It would, of course, be wonderful, Madam Minister, if we could welcome you also on this occasion. Madam Minister, Excellencies, dear guests of honor, dear students, we live in very challenging times. I will not dwell upon the details of the many challenges we face. The list has become just too long. European security and the war of aggression in Ukraine, which has already lasted almost as long as World War I and has seen more brutal attacks over the last days. The situation in the Middle East, and particularly the conflict in Gaza, threats to our democracy. We should not forget that 3/4 of the global population live in autocracies, and democracies are a minority. We suddenly witness the fact that the human factor and personal convictions of leaders decisively influence international relations. The threat of the use of nuclear weapons, artificial intelligence and its use for military purposes, cyber warfare and disinformation, migration and the need for sustainable development and development cooperation, climate change and the threat of deindustrialization, negative nationalism and protectionism, and quite in general, a growing global mistrust and a rules-based international system which has seen its fundaments shaken by international decisions and developments. Konrad Paul Lissmann, the Austrian philosopher, titled his new book on the multitude of crises, Was nun? And now what? What does all of this mean for us at the Diplomatic Academy? First, it means that there is more need for dialogue and diplomacy than ever before. Diplomacy not only matters, but has become crucial for the peaceful existence of mankind. None of the above-mentioned challenges can be met without diplomatic efforts. Secondly, it concerns all of us. You, dear students, the future global leaders, have to assume responsibility. It will also be up to your efforts to improve the common good of mankind. I'm not exaggerating. Wherever your international career will take you, in diplomatic services, in international organizations and in international corporations, you will be well placed to make smaller or even larger contributions to a more peaceful, just and prosperous world. Thirdly, we as a school will continuously have to adapt our courses and seminars to the ever-changing environment. The multitude of challenges require at the same time a good and critical understanding of the facts, but we need to leave space for flexibility and creativity in finding solutions. And we stick to our overarching motto that we want to educate the next generation of global leaders. But we also need to modernize and digitalize our school. I'm happy to report that this year we were able for the first time to do a complete paperless registration for all of our new students. Ladies and gentlemen, let me pay tribute to the efforts of our foreign minister. Last week she was in New York, actually, well, until Sunday, campaigning with our federal president and our federal chancellor for Austria's candidature for a non-permanent seat on the Security Council of the United Nations for the years 2027-2028. It is a clear sign of Austria's resolve to take responsibility to work for a rules-based international system on which we rely like so many other small and medium-sized countries. And we are more than prepared to support these efforts here at our school. Last week, I spoke at the Ukraine conference at City Hall, together with Ambassador Briggs. It felt good to be able to say that Austria stood at the side of Ukraine since the first day of Russia's aggression. We have supported Ukraine in so many ways, financially, with humanitarian aid, by welcoming Ukrainians in Austria, through the continuing work of our companies in Ukraine, and by supporting all initiatives and sanctions in the EU. It is more than telling that Foreign Minister Meinl-Reisinger, shortly after assuming her office, made her first official bilateral visit to Ukraine. I'm sure that the Foreign Minister will touch on the horrendous situation in the Gaza Strip, the Hamas massacre of October 7th, the need for a ceasefire, the release of all hostages, free access for humanitarian deliveries, and the global effort for a two-state solution. As one of only few EU foreign ministers, she made an official visit to Israel in June to express her concerns directly there. Over the last days, we saw some signs of hope for an agreement with the presentation of the 20-point peace plan and yesterday's meeting at the White House. Finally, as a convinced European, I hope that the European Union will follow up on the wake-up call which Europe received in the recent past. Europe needs to act quickly and decisively in areas such as defense and security, competitiveness, and energy autonomy, but also on geostrategic questions such as EU enlargement. Last Sunday, the enlargement process received a true boost by the pro-European result of the elections in Moldova. Madam Minister, Excellencies, guests of honor, I'm very grateful that you're honoring us with your presence and that you start the new academic year with us. It is a much appreciated expression of respect for the work of the Diplomatic Academy and underlines the interest that you take in the future of this very traditional institution. Dear students, I wish you all a very interesting, a rewarding, a productive and enjoyable academic year. Be curious and have a great time. Thank you.
Dear Director Ambassador Eichtinger, dear former directors, dear excellencies, distinguished guests, but of course, dear students, it's about you. It is really a great honor and first time, not the last time, a joy to stand before you on this special day. That's a new start of your academic career. And I want to stress this, it's one of the most prestigious, oldest traditional Austrian institutions. Today marks the beginning of a new chapter for you in your lives that will shape not only your career, but also the way you see the world, and potentially it will shape the world. Let me begin with starting to congratulate you. It was not an easy task to come here, I heard it. Also not an easy travel, I suppose, with all the visa requirements. I know especially about one that was really a tough one. So we are all happy that you're here now. Congratulations. And it's not a small achievement to be here, to getting into the Diplomatic Academy. It's actually the result of talent, the result of hard work that you've done, and a great deal of determination to come here. Out of almost 500 applications, only 130 students were accepted this year. This is a true testament to your talent and your dedication. And you told it, you said it, what a diverse group you are. I mean, listening to all the different areas you come from, that's really very, well, for me, a very good example on what a diplomatic career should be about. Like different kind of people coming together, probably sharing one view, but of course spending time together and working on the future of your future, but the future of our world. For Austrian diplomats, the Academy has always been very close to the heart. Actually, I thought about also coming to the Diplomatic Academy when I finished my law studies. I did not. Maybe it was a mistake. I did a master in European studies, but many of my staff, of course, at the Foreign Ministry began their journeys right here. And you know that we talked about that. Wherever I travel, I meet with people, with alumnus that have studied here, that have taken part in courses, that know Vienna through the Diplomatic Academy, and they feel close to Austria because of the Diplomatic Academy. So take pride in being here, enjoy it, and prepare yourselves for a journey that will be as challenging as it will be rewarding. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to speak now not only as a foreign minister, but in the same way that I gave my speech last week in the United Nations. Because when I look at you, and I'm a little bit older than you, start thinking about the careers probably, or the studies my children will take up in the future. But of course, I working in a world like this confronts you also as a mother. Because you look at your children, you talk to your children, and you suddenly realize that your children, my oldest daughter is 16 years old, she's now living in a world where she doesn't rely on the future to be better than the present, or to be better than the past. When I listen to my daughter and talking with her friends, they make jokes about how the world is going to end. Might it be through a nuclear war? Might it be through climate change? Might it be through overpopulation? And they might be joking around, but when you listen to them, I get really, really fearful, because this is a totally different generation you're living in than my generation. I always say I'm a child of the end of history. I was born in Vienna in the, I know I say it, 1978, so some time ago. When I grew up, the world looked different. The Cold War ended, the Iron Curtain had fallen, Europe was coming together. Democracy and prosperity seemed unstoppable. For me as a young woman or as a student, everything was about more freedom, more prosperity, more chances. Francis Fukuyama was writing about the end of history. Yeah, I was a child of the end of history. It was probably a very European-centered way, or Western-centered way to see the world, I must admit. But of course, we believed in everything getting better. War has returned to Europe. Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine has reminded us that peace is never certain. We also see polarization in our societies that are not leading somewhere good. Disinformation pollutes our debates. Democracies are under increasing pressure. Climate change, stagnating economy, or even a recession in Austrian case, rapid technological transformation, and yeah, you have a mixture that is really threatening our future in a way, especially the way we look at the future. As a mother, this worries me. As a foreign minister, it motivates me. Because the job of a political leader is to make sure, and this is the toughest job, to have a brighter future than the present, and to work hard. And if history teaches us one thing, that no night is endless. Change can come true with the first light of a new day. And it can come true if people believe in that change, and they believe in their ability to make a difference. When I walk through my office, I'm often reminded of this fact by a small, ordinary object, a rusty piece of wire. It was cut from the Iron Curtain in 1989. For decades, that wall, and it's in opposite of my office, so I step out of it, I see it with some nice, like the Austrian flag and the Hungarian flag. For decades, and this was my childhood, the wall of concrete and wire divided our continent. It looked permanent. To millions of Europeans, it felt like an eternal barrier, not just separating nations, but tearing apart families. Last year, I traveled to Berlin for the first time with 2 of my 3 children, the older ones, and I went again, I must say, to the museum of the Wall Museum, I don't know what's called. And when you get there, you suddenly realize not only about history and how the wall was built and when, but you realize that the time that the wall has now come down is longer, the period, than the wall has stood. But still, it was such a striking or a very determining time period that we had the separation in Europe. But what was built by human hands to divide Europe was also cut apart by human hands to unite Europe. In 1989, right on our border with Hungary, that Iron Curtain was literally cut through. And with it, an entire chapter of history came to an end. A new one began. At that time, I was just 11 years old. I couldn't grasp everything that enrolled here in this stage of history in the making. But I saw via the emotions of my parents, the discussions. I was raised in a very political family, about the dimension of what is happening right here, of course. And for me, it was really touching. I mean, to see people literally running into their freedom, especially when the Berlin Wall came down. People were crying, they were laughing, they were hugging each other across a border, in the case of the Iron Curtain, that had seemed unbreakable. I understood what was going on, and I understood the dimension. History was made not slowly, but in a single moment that could change everything. When our foreign minister at the time, Alois Mock, took the bolt cutters in his hands, and together with his Hungarian counterpart, cut through the Iron Curtain, it was a moment that improved millions of lives. And just behind him, watching it, and you can see yourself on pictures, stood a young diplomat. His name was Martin Eichtinger. You stood there. You were also seen in the pictures, so I know why. You witnessed a continent breaking free. You saw how history can turn in an instant, how courage can make the impossible possible. And today you're the director at the Diplomatic Academy, and it's now your task to make your students believe in the possibility of change when you believe in it. Trust me, you can learn a great deal from Martin. He's not very experienced, but I know that he's a true European and a true believer in diplomacy. So again, congratulations, not only on being here, but also having this wonderful, also academic team around you. The story of 1989 carries an essential truth. Hope is never naive. Change is always possible, and even small countries, even just a few determined people, can change history. So the question is, where do we find this hope today? For me, the hope lies in the democratic, liberal values that define who we are, not as Austrians, not just as Europeans, but as human beings. They are the values that I want my children to carry with them, because they are the only true foundation of peace and freedom, human dignity. Peace must be built on dialogue, not violence. You said it about the importance. Every person, regardless where they are born, the language they speak, or the faith they hold, deserves dignity and equal rights. Free trade, and this is also under a lot of pressure, makes everyone richer, and protectionism makes us all poorer. And that we all have a duty to look beyond borders, beyond generations, and to work for a future that is better than the one we inherited. These values are not abstract, especially in times like these. They are the reason neighbors can live in peace rather than in fear. They are what made us free and prosperous in the first place, the light that guided us through dark times. They remind us that freedom is not given once and for all. It must be renewed every time, by every generation, protected every day, defend whenever it is under threat. And today, we must be honest, these liberal values are under attack, not just abroad, in places like Ukraine or Gaza, we see it, but also in the West itself. They are threatened by rising nationalism that promises maybe safety, but delivers division, authoritarian strongmen who claim to defend their nations, but in truth seek to conquer their neighbors, silence critiques, undermine the fragile fabric of peace, and by the voices of cynicism that whisper the truth doesn't matter and that might makes right. This is why our commitment to freedom matters. We must raise our voices when others fall silent. We must teach our children that liberty is stronger than fear, and we must show by example that cooperation is not weakness, but strength. And here's actually something that I want to share with you, because there are a lot of negative news, you know, But and I come back from a week at the United Nations in New York, and we had all this discussion about multilateralism under a lot of threat, and of course financing the United Nations is getting more and more difficult, so there's a lot of reform programs going on, and structures are clearly threatened in challenging times like that. So you feel that there is a time of crisis also when it comes to multilateralism. But I had more than 92 bilateral talks. And the thing is, there are a lot of small countries, like Austria, like other countries, that rely on multilateralism. It's not only in our DNA, but it is essential to stick to multilateralism. And especially in times like that, I had the feeling last week that there is a big chance to even a growing sticking to multilateralism. You know, in the sense, like now more than ever, we have to work together. We have to cooperate, even though there are not all countries seeing it the same way. But of course, bigger countries, they have other means to pursue their political interests. Smaller countries have to rely on multilateralism. So the positive news I want to bring is that you see in all this crisis a glimpse of hope, that cooperation is more important than ever before. And that is where I find hope. I think this is something that can carry us through these difficult times. And this brings me back to you, because the story of hope must always be about the future. And you are the future. Over the next years, you will learn the craft of diplomacy, negotiation, languages, international law, history, economics, but you will also learn something deeper. Diplomacy is about people. It's about building relations, about listening, about building trust, about compromises, and yes, a big deal about finding creative solutions where others only see problems. I want to share with you another point of view. Like last week, I had this strong feeling I have to share it with you. Some of the rules we try to stick to do not longer apply. Courses of history can change in a split second. We know that. But it's really a split second because it can be a single tweet now. It can be a post on Truth Social. It can be a viral video. So I think that rules we had probably in the past do not apply anymore. Political ideas and strategies may come from very different points of view, like we saw it. The developing strategies and policies towards the war in Ukraine, but also the war in Gaza. And we have seen many turning points in the last month. But what was behind all that was hard work of diplomacy, hard work of political talks, hard work of finding solutions and paths that lead to political solutions and diplomatic solutions. We do not know if we will find peace, hopefully, in Gaza and a future for Palestinian soil, and of course the release of the hostages. But what we saw over the last days was prepared by a lot of work. But still it's communication that has changed dramatically over the last years. And what I want to share with you is the idea that in a world like that, I mean, it's an ancient wisdom that the first thing that the first victim of war is always truth. But with social media, with fake news, with information manipulation, we are at the risk of not losing even, we are losing the very concept of truth. And this is really threatening the way we worked, also as diplomats. The change of the world is now driven by a battle of narratives. So it's not only about the handcraft of being a diplomat to talk to each other, to negotiate, but it's also about communication and finding the right narratives. In a battle of narratives, the right narratives will prevail if they find the right audience, which is tricky because you have to find the right audience of that. But losing the concept of truth, where you cannot rely anymore, even more if you topple that with AI-generated videos, what will make that to diplomacy? If you cannot be sure about a video that you see, has this really been said? Or is this just totally fake? And you cannot rely on what you see anymore. You cannot rely on what you hear anymore. I tell that to you not in only to frighten you, but I think you have to keep in mind that things are developing in a very fast manner, and things change, and it's still the hard work you have to do. But not only matters what you do, but how you explain it and how you talk about it. I think that being relatable to broader audiences is now a key skill you will have to develop. Even in distinguished surroundings like that, like this diplomatic spheres, it's all about thinking who is the audience and to use the language that meets the audience best. I tell this to you because this disruption is of utmost importance for our democracies. The hard reality is you cannot longer expect that others will play by the rules that you are willing to follow. I think this is a very hard truth. And without a shared concept of truth, about a shared concept on how to deal with each other, there may be no fertile grounds for rules at all. Your generation will have to fix it. We try, but history is moving at a pace faster than ever. So I have the feeling you are going to hold the pen that continues to write the story, and it's going to be up to you. Be aware that you're never passengers of history. You are the driving force. Democracy, peace, prosperity, they do not preserve themselves. They depend on people who speak up, who take responsibility, who imagine a better future and work for it. The responsibility currently is ours, but in a very short future, it will be yours. Whether you become diplomats, politicians, academics, leaders in civil society, your choices will shape what kind of future we live in. So yes, be creative, be bold, be courageous. Don't accept that the world has to stay as it is today. Believe me, as so many brave men and women believed in 1989, that change is possible. But I must say, when I look at you, I don't see a generation condemned to pessimism. I see a generation that can restore optimism, a generation that can ensure tomorrow is brighter than today. The world needs you. The world needs your ideas, your energy, your passion, your professionality, and of course also your communication. Use them. Be bridge builders when others put up walls. And remember, the Iron Curtain once seemed unbreakable, but it fell. It fell. War, poverty, climate change may seem overwhelming today, but they too can be overcome. So go forward without fear. Carry with you the pride of this academy and the lessons of our history. The future is not going to be written for you, it's going to be written by you. Thank you all very much, and of course, have fun. Thank you.
Dear professors, faculty, staff, distinguished guests, and most importantly, my fellow students. My name is Julia Dean, and as the president of our Diplomatic Academy Students Initiative, I have the honor to speak with you this evening as we welcome both new and returning students, thank you, to the 251st year of our Diplomatic Academy. Before I continue, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our prior speakers, Director Eichtinger and Foreign Minister Meinl-Reisinger. We are excited to welcome Ambassador Eichtinger as our new director and look forward to learning from his deep expertise spanning multiple industries and diplomatic assignments to Italy, the UK, Moldova, and my nation of birth, Romania. We are also grateful to Foreign Minister Meinl-Reisinger not only for sharing her wisdom tonight, but also for her steadfast support of this institution, such as during last year's Diplomatic Academy Students Initiative Conference, the DASI-Con. Thank you. Oh, that's not it, that's not it. Over the last year, I've had the privilege of experiencing what makes the DA so special. Now, of course, the excellence of professors, the breadth of our student societies, and the vibrancy of our events are wonderful pillars of the DA. But what truly distinguishes this institution is its people, our community. When I think about community, I'm reminded of my childhood. In elementary school years, I remember riding the bus home on Fridays and discussing with fellow students what our plans were for the weekend. Some looked forward to delicious dinners at grandma's house, while others dreaded the long drive to their aunts. For me, as a Romanian-American immigrant with no other family in the US besides my parents, I had other plans. Dinner with my Chinese uncles, Dawei and Song. What started as office friendships between my dad and his two colleagues became a second family. Each weekend, our families would exchange stories of home over homemade dishes, theirs from Harbin, ours from Cluj and Craiova. These dinners gave me much needed comfort as an immigrant child who never fully identified with either the Romanian nor American label. These dinners gave me community. And after a year here at the DA, I feel that I've once again found this sort of community, and I know that my fellow students feel this way too. When I ask them what moments define the DA community, here are a handful of stories they shared with me. Riding the bus together during the Brussels study trip, singing along with the choir to the last song of the Christmas extravaganza, sharing beers and laughs after 2 great hours of football together, peers helping one another through tough moments like the loss of a parent, being welcomed to the community even before becoming a student, celebrating achievements together like the DASI-Con, the Diplomatic Ball, or the release of each polemics issue. Quizzing one another on history IDs the entire week leading up to the exam, and then debriefing afterwards in the garden. Feeling like I'm home once I step foot into the DA. Now, these are just a handful of examples of the understanding, care, and togetherness that defines the DA. And while it may seem small, each bond forged across cultural, linguistic, and gender lines is a step forward to a better world. And perhaps it seems naive, believing that this world that grows ever more violent and fractured can be healed through solidarity and allyship, but history teaches us otherwise. Time and again, it has shown us that division, hate, and enmity lead only to destruction, while progress is built from empathy, cooperation, and community. Yet it seems time again for the world to learn this lesson, as you both have shared. As for now, we are not yet global leaders. We are DA students. But what we learn and choose to do here will not only shape our institution, but the future we will create. So let's start here. Let's build and shape our community, our DA. Some of you are already doing so as society leaders, as student ambassadors, as teaching assistants, or as my fellow DASI members. Thank you for your efforts. But make no mistake, you do not need a title to make a positive impact. So, my fellow students, I look forward to spending the year ahead with you and to all of the accomplishments we will celebrate. Now, without further ado, let's enjoy the celebratory evening and welcome an inspiring academic year. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Madam Minister, for your keynote speech and for so personally addressing the audience. Julia, mulțumesc frumos. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank also the musicians. You heard the String Quartet of the European Union Youth Orchestra. The European Union Youth Orchestra unites musicians from all the 27 EU member states. It has its headquarters in Austria, in Lower Austria at Grafenegg. And I would like to thank Annika Doth at the violin, Stephanie Neubauer at the violin, Selina Pilz at the viola, and Stephanie Dott at the cello. By the way, the second anthem, the European anthem, for those of you who were on the Wine Walk, we stood in Baden in front of Beethoven House, where this anthem was composed, so now you heard it. And now I would like to invite you all next door to refreshments and a reception. Thank you for being here. This concludes the official part. Thank you.